Normally I don't get nervous, but my son is right there. What do you do when your son is right there judging his dad and he secretly wants you to fail? And you know he secretly wants you to fail. All right, we've got, how many minutes do I have? 30. I got 30? Oh, well, I'll all right, no, I know because it's the bar thing. Yes, I know, vodka. All right, so first of all, get some terminology straight. Not going to call it Chat GPT, it's Chat G. So that's the new hip name for Chat GPT for all of us. We're going to call it Chat G. I'm very pleased to be speaking here. This is my 9th year of speaking at Mike's events, and all his events are just absolutely wonderful. And he lets me talk about really far out things, and forward-looking things, and recent things. And in fact, so recent as today. How many of y'all watched this today? The world, I will go ahead and tell you this, the world changed today. This was an iPhone moment. They save, whenever Apple does an event, they almost never say, oh, what is it they say, Zach? Oh, one more thing. They never say one more thing. They'll end the conference, but when they say one more thing, it's a big deal. They did it for the watch, they did it for the iPhone, they did it for this. This is going to be a boon for people who are in home health care. It's going to be wonderful. I want to show you what it does. By the way, you see her eyes staring at you through the goggles. It's called Apple Vision Pro. Those aren't her eyes. There's a screen on the front of the goggle and a camera inside which is showing her eyes and approximating them so that you don't feel distant talking to them. Isn't that weird? Trust me, I'm going to go into the AI thing for a second, but remember Minority Report with Tom Cruise? That's where we're at now, and the way you can be looking at an Excel spreadsheet. I couldn't be more excited about what happened today. I mean, I really couldn't. You can be looking at an Excel spreadsheet and you look at the cell that you want to click and you just look at it, it tracks your eyes, and then you do your finger like that. And the camera here sees your finger do that, right? And it clicks on it. It's going to change the world. Everybody's going to have essentially a 100-foot movie screen in their house right in front of their face and be able to watch 3D movies realized like Casablanca. You'll be able to watch it in 3D immediately. Plus, when people come towards you, it fades into the background. And for home health care, and especially seniors, and let's say, people who cannot get out of the house at all, their lives today, and I'm not joking, have been 100x'd. I mean, it doesn't come out till early next year, but their lives are 100 times better than they ordinarily would have been because of this device. It's that big a deal. I encourage all y'all to go back and watch what they did. She's FaceTiming somebody right now in this slide, and what's interesting is that they approximate, when you FaceTime with somebody wearing these things, it does a rendering of your face, a very good rendering, so that it doesn't show the glasses you're wearing at all. So when you're on FaceTime, it's going to be your really, really accurate avatar. Isn't that kind of cool? All right, let me ask y'all a question. Last November, how many of y'all had heard of Chat GPT or Chat G? Okay. How many of y'all have used it at least once by now? It's the fastest growing consumer product, adopted product in history. The chat means you can talk to it, but what it stands for is generative pre-training transformer, and I had to write this down so I don't mess it up. Generative meaning it's making things up. Hold on, where is my thing? This is funny. Generative means it can make up new content. Pre-trained means it's learning from massive amounts of data. And transform means its architecture allows it to understand words, right, and communicate to everybody in words. And before I forget, I have 3 predictions for y'all. I like to make predictions. I made some predictions 8 years ago with Mike that came true, and we'll see if they happen. My first prediction is that there's going to be a CMS-approved AI, all right, which sounds weird. What do you think the odds of that, Bruce, are?
How long from now?
5 years from now. I think it's going to happen really quick. There's going to be CMS-approved AI. The role of nurses is going to be vastly increased because they'll be working with AI, and a CMS-approved AI will be wonderful. And I think there's going to be a new certification for people to go work in the home, be home health workers, but a certification to where they're working with AI. so that they're like a certified AI home health worker, something like that, so that we can get more people to help folks in a home health situation. So those are my predictions. Mike puts these on the internet, so we'll see if it happens. There's a lot of industry hype around Chat GPT, and generative AI, it's kind of the same thing. But the hype is actually real this time. This is not an overhyped technology. I believe this is a real thing. As I said before, it's been adopted quicker than almost any technology in history. It went to 100 million users within just a matter of months. But what fascinates me about it is my daughter just graduated from Belmont, and she graduated in nursing. And I asked her how many classes she had on AI at Belmont during that time. And was there any AI training at all? She said not a bit, which blows my mind because that's what's going to be happening. They're going to be using AI as they tend to patients, consulting with the AI. And that's one way we're going to make up for the shortage of doctors that we have. There's a huge role for ChatG, and it's not just going to be diagnosing diseases. And what I like to do is one thing I use ChatGPT for is I go on walks, and for about an hour in the evening, and I dictate. And so I'll just be walking along, thinking my little thoughts, and I'll be like, oh, look at that bird, and then I'll say something profound, and then I'll be like, oh, I stepped in some gum. But meanwhile, it's just everything's being recorded, right? And I get home, and I use a program called Whisper, which is kind of related to the whole Chat GPT program. It's like maximally accurate transcriptions of things. And I take Whisper and I throw it into Chat GPT and I tell it, bullet point the 20 most important things I just said. And it does it for me, and it makes sense. And it's like, you need to do this, 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 and this, and it ignores me looking at the birds or whatever it is I'm looking at. It picks out the important stuff because it's contextual. And I'm doing it in the same sort of conversation that I've been having with it before. ChatGPT brings in lots and lots of information, but as you go further and further along in a conversation with it, it learns vertically. So big data comes in from the side, but it learns vertically coming in from the top. Does that make sense? So if you keep starting new conversations with ChatGPT, it's not going to really remember your old stuff. So you need to kind of make sure you're staying in a conversation with ChatGPT if it's on a certain topic. Anyway, here's how, a lot of ways, I think it's going to affect y'all. Thank the Lord, it's going to automate administrative tasks, freeing up caregivers' time, which isn't a huge thing in y'all's industry because we have a lack of bodies. It's streamlining appointments, saying somebody is running late. It can notify another provider to go to somebody's house, or it can just notify the person that they're going to be there late, or perhaps it could reschedule. It can make sure that they're taking the proper dosages of their medicines. By the way, all these slides are made by AI, okay? The thoughts are the thoughts that I have while I'm out wandering around looking at birds. But the slides itself, my son sitting right there, made with AI, with a ChatGPT-ish type AI, all the drawings. Can my son get a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. Boy, is he going to hate me for that. Virtual assistant AIs can help people adhere to their medication regimens. And how are they going to do that? I think they're going to do that orally, where they'll be like, because people have speakers in their houses now. They'll be like, did you remember to take your metoprolol today? And you might say no, and then it'll nag you a little bit later and say, you sure you took your metoprolol today? So it'll just sort of be nagging at you a little bit or notifying you on your watch and keeping track of whether you're adhering to it or not. This is super important, and I have a really good example of this. In National Health Service in Britain, they have an acute kidney injury algorithm, and when they're monitoring patients remotely, the algorithm itself looks at what's coming in from the equipment and it says, okay, we need a nurse here, or uh-oh, this is bad, we need a whole team, and it notifies them on their devices. So the AI is not, they're using the acute kidney injury algorithm, but the AI is deciding who should be notified. How bad is it, and who should be notified? Should they be going to their house or not, or is it something that could be taken care of over the phone? And as long as it's learning, as long as it's still in that vertical and learning, it's a great thing. This is sort of an obvious one, but you take all the health data from EHRs, which is really the key to all this starting in, I guess it was 2009 with the High-Tech Act. Was that right, Bruce? It was 2009? With the High-Tech Act, all the information we had on patients finally started getting organized, and we could do something with it. The crazy, crazy thing about Chat GPT to me is, you've heard this rule about data, garbage in, garbage out, right? The crazy, crazy thing about Chat GPT is garbage in, but you can put some garbage in, and it will kind of look for patterns and reason its way through the stuff it doesn't need, right? That's what makes it a little bit different. It's not verbatim spitting out what's put in. It's making inferences from patterns that it sees in the data. And that's what makes it fascinating. And it's all reliant on the EHR. We're going to wind up with 3 EHR companies ultimately, probably, and they'll all kind of work together through the other important thing, which is the FHIR protocol, the Fast Healthcare Interoperability, help me, Bruce? Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, which is like, remember, I don't know if y'all are this old, it used to be when you had a WordPerfect document and you wanted to go in Word, it wouldn't work at all, ever, and you couldn't even pay people to do it. But somebody wrote a little intermediary piece of code which made it work, and everything was fine. That's what FHIR does, is it takes things from different EHRs and puts them together so that the data makes sense to everybody. Caregivers can be alerted of potential health crises before they occur. I'll give you all a bizarre example of this. You can take pictures of your retinal fundus from your ophthalmologist and run it through a AI, and it can determine whether or not you're going to have a cardiac event in the next 3 years. Isn't that odd? All these tools now that we didn't think we were going to have, we have now. It can assist with wound care. I, last December, made the wise decision to, a dog attacked my dog, like a bull terrier attacked my little tiny dog. So I was like, well, heck, I'm just going to attack the bull terrier, which is not one of my better decisions, I will admit. And I had a wound, and I was sending it to Mike. I was like, look at all my stitches. And in fact, I tried to get the lady to type the word, or to spell out the word ouch with my stitches, because I had so many, but she wouldn't do it. But anyway, my doctor and I only communicated about my wound, which was a serious wound, through the phone. And AI does a quite good job of assessing wound management now. It's really neat. This is a little bit morbid, but this is going on. Given enough information that exists in an EHR, you can talk to AI, you can talk to Chat GPT if you want, and have a conversation about life expectancy so that you can plan around certain things that we as adults need to plan for. It can determine the effectiveness of different treatments. What excites me about this is the ability for AI to do virtual clinical trials on diseases that nobody's putting money into because there's not enough money to come out. But you could take some super rare disease that maybe 200 people in the world have, and you can do some work on it. And mostly it's through genomic data mixed up with their EHR data, but it's a wonderful thing. We can customize physical therapy based upon certain physical attributes of the patient in home health care. Your watch now, your Apple Watch measures your gait. I don't know if you know that or not. And if your gait is getting, you can look in your health app, and if your gait is getting smaller, that means you're losing your balance a little bit more. And that's an indicator that, we need to be paying attention to certain things. And it's tracking that over a long period of time, and AI is figuring out whether or not you need to be paying attention to that specific thing. In Chicago, they did a study where they were able to predict hospital readmissions with 95% accuracy within 30 days by crunching the numbers. If you get enough data in there, you can make inferences that you could never make before, but what we never had before was we never had the data before. Algorithms can match, let's say somebody is from Honduras. They might feel more comfortable with a doctor that speaks Spanish or is from Honduras or something like that. So AI can help with that. This is important in the training of especially these new home healthcare workers certified in AI that I've been talking about, is you can simulate caregiving scenarios so people can learn. You can use AI to really throw stuff at people and get them to learn quicker and quicker. You'll find when you're using Chat GPT, you learn things so fast, it will absolutely freak you out. Supply chain management, we saw it break down in the last 2 years. Anything that can help streamline that, especially getting things to the patient in the home, is a wonderful thing. Of course, it can detect anomalies in lab results. If you go way, way back, that's how we found the problem with Vioxx, was there were anomalies in the lab results, and that EHR, which I think was Vista, if I'm not mistaken. This is like the holy grail of what we're shooting for, is automating boring data entry tasks. And the thing that's the key to that is that the transcription has gotten so good with Whisper GPT. I encourage y'all to look up Whisper GPT. Why am I still holding this? I encourage y'all to look up Whisper GPT and see how accurate the transcriptions are. It's scary, and it'll transcribe it for you, and then you can say, you know what, I think I want that in 60 languages now. And it'll do it right then. It'll do it perfectly right then, now. It's just wonderful. So data entry is going to get a lot better because the transcription is going to be phenomenal. And you can you can do this actually as we speak, carry on real-time conversations with people through Zoom, where it goes ahead and translates for you on the fly. Have any of y'all done that yet? It's positively spooky and scary accurate. On the paperwork side, it can determine whether or not somebody is eligible for various home care services. And it'll figure out weird information. I threw like my bank statements into Chat GPT and my American Express and all that. And I was like, will you just figure this mess out? And it came together with a good report saying, here's what you spent, here's what you need to be doing, blah, blah, blah. That's just normal Chat GPT type stuff that you can do now. We haven't thought up 1% of the stuff Chat GPT can do. And I honestly believe 10 years from now, it's going to be 1,000,000 times more powerful than it is right now, because what we have going on is not humans writing code. Now we have code writing code. So the programming that's being done is going to be exponentially faster. We're living in the most wonderful time. We're living in a wonderful day in the most wonderful time on earth. Nutrition, yeah, I need to get on that one pretty fast, actually. I'm going to skip through that. Pain management, somebody can actually talk to their little, I believe there's going to be like little Roombas living in people's houses that ask you questions, and you say, my pain medication worked okay, and you get assessed over time. This is massively important for those of y'all who hire people who go into folks' home. It's burnout. And so not having to do all the super tedious stuff can help people not burn out. Now, as far as the patient is concerned, it can help them understand their bill. Like I did the other day with all my finances. I just threw it in there and I'm like, oh, I finally understand that I'm subscribed to 1,900 Netflix subscriptions or whatever it is I'm subscribed to. Didn't know, but it made sense of it. So it can help make sense of what your EHR is, which is a complex document. It can also help, families are going to benefit because they'll have a more thoughtful answer to the particular malady that their family member is suffering from. I did this recently. There's something called drgupta.ai, and you put in your vitals, and then you just ask it questions, and by golly, it gives you pretty good answers. Telehealth, everybody's talked about that to death, but what's interesting about telehealth is ChatGPT can take care of a lot of the slack at the front of the conversation so that the doctor doesn't have to go through, the physician or the nurse doesn't have to go through and not waste time, but spend time getting a lot of that information up front. This is a big deal to me. Big, big deal. And that's why I was so excited about these glasses today, is providing emotional support and companionship to seniors, all right? And you can do that in weird ways. They'll be able to tell. We're at a point now where in 6 months, somebody can say, you know what? I think I want you to read me a book in the voice of my daughter. We're kind of there. I'll tell you something I did, which is a little bit weird. Son, close your ears. I don't want you to have to hear this. This is daddy stuff. But my dad died 25 years ago. Oh, laughing at my dad dying. Okay, I see how it is. Anyway, my dad died 25 years ago, and I use a program called Emacs, which my friend Zach right there knows all about Emacs because I'm always talking about it. Hidden inside Emacs, which is what Facebook was written in, is a Rogerian psychologist. And I had the wacky idea. I was like, huh. So I found an old videotape of my dad. I cloned his voice. I know y'all have all heard about voice cloning, right? And Rogerian psychology is like, oh, I feel bad today. And then it just asks questions. Well, why do you feel bad? Well, why particularly did you do that? You know, it just asks you questions back, right? Well, I did a little bit of programming, and so I would ask the question in my voice. It would be transcribed with Whisper. It would be fed into Emacs and would be answered in my father's voice. It would be rendered back to me in my father's voice. And you would think it would freak me out. Everybody told me not to do it, but it was incredibly comfortable. It was incredibly just comforting to have that happen. You couldn't do that 6 months ago. Not 6 months ago could you do that. You can do that right now, and that's just knucklehead me thinking up something to do that might be cool. Actual smart people are going to think up really cool things that can be done. So we're right on the cusp of it. If you're staying at this hotel, when you get up in the middle of the night, you've sort of seen a little bit of this with the track lights sending you right to the bathroom. You know, like the landing lights at the airport. It's like, go here. Now look at your toenails. They look terrible. Clip those things, you monster. Mental health, the way it's going to, one of the ways that it will diagnose the state of your mental health is A, by the language you use with it, but B, by the tone of your voice. The ability to do that exists. It's actually on Amazon's health apps right now. It can tell whether or not you're bummed, which is weird. Sleep patterns, by audio and by a pad lying under your bed. By audio, it can determine if you're at risk for sleep apnea. And depending on the amount you're turning it at night, it will measure over time what sleep problems you might be having. The financial part I just talked about, it just makes it easier. Care between families, I think it just can take all this information that's confusing and say, please summarize this for me. Because some of y'all have probably done the summarize function inside Chat GPT. You give it a big, long document, you know, an academic paper, you can throw a PDF in there and say, please summarize this for me, and it'll do it. Assisting with personal hygiene tasks for patients with mobility issues. I don't want to get too much into that, but it actually happens. There's interesting robotic ways that it can help with that and actually predict that. Facilitate emergency responses, that's kind of obvious. Improve caregiver coordination, that's very obvious. This is really important to me, is supporting mental health, because people that are confined to their homes and getting health care in their homes, or they're in senior living facilities, that is really important for them. And at the end, I'm going to tell you why this all is so very, very important. Okay, we can optimize schedules to minimize inconvenience to patients. We can do robot yoga, I guess. These are the things that just come out of my brain when I'm walking around the neighborhood. Facilitate social connectivity with isolated patients. Do y'all ever find yourselves thanking Siri? Siri, what's the weather today? And they tell you, and you're like, thank you. And then you're like, what did I just do? This was like really quite odd. It can assess impacts of social interaction on your patient's health, because the caregiver, who I guarantee you in 3 years is going to be wearing one of those Apple Vision things I just showed you, your caregiver will be able to sort of assess the patient that way. Follow up, of course, that's pretty obvious. Predicting their needs, yes and no. I can sort of see how that works, but that did come out of my brain. Virtual support groups, I think it's going to be an important thing, especially for the elderly. Interactive health education tools is a wonderful thing. I talked about Dr. Gupta a second ago, speeding up because I just got a few minutes left and there's a bar outside. Delivering cognitive exercises to slow the progression of dementia. With sensors in this is being done right now. With sensors in apartments, they will give a simple task to somebody like boil an egg. We want you to boil an egg. And over time, it measures how well they are at getting the steps together to boil that egg, right? And the more trouble they start having to boil the egg, then the AI senses that. And it's like, it's taking this long this time. They're getting a little bit confused this time. And that's something that AI, we as humans don't have time. What AI is doing is saving us all time to look at these reams of information that nobody can make sense of because we don't have enough time. And what it's doing is saving us time. Assisting in chores for patients with mobility, that'll be little robots, and that's fine. Planning transportation, that's absolutely cool. Optimizing home layouts. Actually, there's somebody thinking about doing that right now where you go through a home with an AI and you optimize it, maybe using these new Apple glasses, I don't know. Analyzing local health resources and help families get help that way rather than staying on Google all day. Spiritual resources, that could actually be a thing. It's no fun to talk about, but as you get towards the end of life, it's something you need to think about. And my son is, going to be a lawyer, and I've told him, I'm like, son, legal work in the future is going to be a lot different than it is right now. It's almost like it's going to be personality driven because the AI is going to handle so much of it more on end-of-life planning and discussions and putting together something kind of nice as a memory, almost a memory book of the person and their lives and helping people manage grief and loss. But back to this, which is what I started with, enable augmented reality interventions for physical and occupational therapy and just general quality of life, general enjoying of life when they're in a space that they can't leave much. I had an idea the other night. I was talking to my friend Zach, who's in the audience. I was like, I'm going to think up a business tonight. And this is what I thought up. Wouldn't it be neat if you were 75 years old and were suffering from dementia? Wouldn't it be neat if you kind of always had a soundtrack going on around you that played little snippets from 70s commercials or 70s music or little bits like the opening to the Dragnet show to make you more comfortable in the space that you were in when you were fully coherent and cognitive. They did this in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The sound mixer did that. It was very immersive. You felt like you were back in, I guess it was 1969. And people are starting to do that you can make auditory AI environments for people to live in with dementia that make them more comfortable. And so here's what y'all would need to be doing. A 3-step process is upskilling staff, improving data quality, although it doesn't have to be perfect, selecting appropriate use cases. Everybody should start small with like the back office cases and then move into the harder stuff. So start small and then expand. It sounds like it's hard. It's not all that hard if you're starting small, but you have to know it now. You have to start. You can't be starting this in 3 years because everybody else is starting small now, and it's very low cost entry. You know how much Chat GPT subscription is? $20. That's all it is $20. And that's pretty much doable. So begin doing them now without waiting for the technology to be perfect because the technology is about to go exponential because code is writing code. And the low cost entry now makes it a great time to enter. Trying to get to my money slide here. People are urgently trying to get into it now, and you should because it's very easy to get into, but here's where my heart is, and I have exactly 57 seconds to say it. My heart is with people who are sitting at home by themselves. They have health problems. Maybe they're seniors, but they're limited in what they can do, right? Well, you've all seen Midjourney, right? Midjourney and tools like Chat GPT, you could tell Chat GPT, write me a haiku about Augusta, Georgia, which is where I'm from, and it would come up with a beautiful haiku for you. Or you could say, paint me a painting of the street, like I said, that I grew up on, and as it would be in 1910. So what I'm saying is people who are confined to home, part of GPT, the generative, is the creative part. And what, ironically, it allows to do is people, especially people who, let's say, don't know how to paint, they can all of a sudden paint and get the satisfaction of producing a painting. And rather than sitting and watching Fox News all day when they're confined to a space, they can sit and do creative things. And I truly believe the universe wants us to do creative things. And I truly believe that Chat GPT and AI is a boon to mankind, especially those who are the very people that y'all deal with. Thank you very much for your time and attention.